Hello and welcome back to the Mystic in Training podcast with me, your host, Melissa Amos. I have the honor of being invited to speak on stage later on this week at the Business Ascension Symposium and Awards, which, by the way, I have been nominated as the Spiritual Iconic Leader of the Year, which is both humbling, exciting, and actually a symptom of what I want to be speaking about today. This week, I'm going to be speaking on how the spiritual space, conscious business owners, and spirituality as a whole seems to have a power problem. This realization came to me not from just studying the industry. This realization came to me, as most initiatory experiences do, through contraction, through something like pretty hard that came up, and through throwing yourself into the fire. Because I realized something, that it's not just the spiritual space or the spiritual industry that has this issue. And actually, I think what's lying underneath this is we've confused what power actually means. We have confused power with ego. We have confused power with force, and we've confused power with, I suppose, what we've seen on the world stage. And for me, that's not power. And so today, I'd really like to dive into what does it actually mean? So for me, the story began, or the story at least got catalyzed. It was a couple of years ago now. I was actually bowling with my kids, and I decided, I didn't decide. I had this intuitive hit, and as intuitive hits go, you can never ignore them, and they never really make much sense. But I was called to put out an offer that I'd been toying with for quite some time. And there I was in between bowls, and I wrote on my page, walk with me for a year, £22,222. Hit post, carried on with my bowling. What then ensued was, it was very interesting. There were hundreds of comments. They weren't all inquiries, but there was hundreds of comments that went into, some curious, some asking for more information. But the ones that really caught my attention were ones that were calling me out, the ones that were saying to me things like, who do you think you are? And oh my God, really? And I think my personal favorites were the ones that were saying how now I'm asking for this kind of money. I have gone to the dark side and I must be working with dark forces. At the time, it was really hard. And I have to say that I cared more about those comments than I cared to admit at the time. They definitely affected me. And after that, I went into a little bit of a dark night of the soul. Things began to unravel from that. But what came through the other side was something really interesting. Because I look back and I realize now that it wasn't that they were questioning the price necessarily. It's not that they were questioning the offer. Because if I was a doctor or if I was a lawyer and I had done the thousands of hours of training that I have done, the thousands of client hours that I had put in, the level of care that I put into my work and the dedication that I have, this would never have been questioned. It would have been like, oh, cool, bargain, right? But what was really being put in question was power. They were questioning, do I hold that much power and is it okay? And if I'm honest, that was what came up for me. When they're asking, who do you think you are? I turn that question back to myself. Who do I think I am? And what fundamentally came up was that, am I willing to stand in my power? Am I willing to hold that level of integrity and congruence and strength to be able to stand behind what it was that I'd put out there? As I went through my comments, I started to realize that, surprisingly or not, most of the comments came from people who were in my space, who were other spiritual practitioners, Reiki practitioners, no one that I'd taught actually, but people who had been in my vicinity, and also people who had known before my business really began to establish itself. But as I went into them and felt the energy that was sitting underneath it, I realized that my role here was to really begin to understand what's the difference. Like, what are they perceiving? The power that I was holding, or perhaps even the unsurety of the power that I was holding. Let me say this: the power that was trying to come through me was actually being fragmented or distorted, if you like, by some of the hidden agreements. If we go with that language, so by some of the hidden agreements that I was holding, some of the lenses that I was still holding so true. Things like, well, I need to be accepted, my humility, my wanting to be, one of the tribe. And that was being filtered through their lens of it's not safe to be powerful. Because how many of us are taught this? Don't get too big. Don't be too visible. And especially people like us who are growing up, we often thought differently to other people. We often played differently to other people. We often had, like we were maybe a little bit odd. And because of that, we learned that it wasn't fully safe to be standing in our power, that we can't get too big, that we can't get too visible, that we can't get too seen, to kind of dull down or dim down a little bit what we want to express here, because people look at us like we're nuts. But also, don't earn too much. Don't think too highly of yourself. These are all programs that we have confused with what it means to be powerful. And then when we look at the world stage, we start to see that what power is things like domination, force, putting power over somebody else. But what if that's not power? What if power is actually about congruence? What if power is actually about leadership, and not just leading other people, but learning how to lead yourself? What if power really is this thing of like, I know who I am, I know how I serve, and I'm going to act in that direction all of the time? It's truly having that belief in, I know that I am perfectly made for what it is that I am here to do. And so my life inquiry is, and so my life actions are moving in that direction. What if power really is about expression and being able to stand here and go, this is my thoughts. These are what I feel. This is what wants to come through me right now, from beyond my psychology, from beyond my programming, but from my level of truth. And being grounded enough in that to know that it's doing good for you, it's doing good for the person that's hearing that, and it's doing good for the world, even if people don't agree. We weren't all meant to be the same, but I do think that we were all here to really stand in true power and to move the goalpost from what power is, from what force is, because they are two very different things. Force is, I know in my head, in my mind, I've got this. I know what I need to be doing. And so I am going to control it. I'm going to micromanage it. It's that kind of win-lose. It's that I know best. And I am going to withhold on other people's or other minds or other higher consciousness, and I am going to make this happen. There's a micromanagement element in here. Whereas power is something different. For me, power is drawing from a force bigger than you and letting it move through you and bringing everything into congruence so nothing is fragmented. Power is, I know, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see my hands go down more into my belly. I know there is a depth of knowing that this is want to be expressed through me. And I'm not doing it to try and convince you. I'm not doing this for win-lose. I'm doing this for win-win. I'm sharing this because this is my truth right now. This is fueled by a power bigger than me. This aligns with my values or the way that I am in the world or my life experience. And I'm willing to grow. I think that's part of it. I think part of the difference between power and force is force will be like, this is it, and I'm kind of closed off to anything more because I've made my mind up. Whereas power is, okay, this is what wants to express through me, and its quality is growth, its quality is expansion, and its quality is love. When I speak about darkness and light and good and evil, we start to get into this, what is evil? Well, it's the rejection of light. It's the, right, I've had a thing, I've had an idea, I've got this now, I don't need greater help. And this is where we start moving into just coming in from the small mind. For me, when we really come and step into our power, we lose the need to have to make things happen. And we gain this curiosity and this strength and this groundedness that, like, I'm willing to be proved wrong, but come and join me here rather than submit to me here. Can you feel that difference in quality? And I think until we get this right, we as human beings who want to do good in the world, whether you are in the spiritual industry or not, if you're listening to this podcast, you have a curiosity about energetics and about the bigger minds and about spirituality and about higher powers, right? And it's people like us that often have the hardest time with receiving. And it's people like us that often have the hardest time with, I am a powerful being. When I look at this, especially from the viewpoint of the Akashic Records, we are the ones that should be holding our power. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then use that as good information. Because who should be holding power in the world? Should it be the politicians that we see that are, questionable? Or should it be the people who really want to make positive change in the world? Who are really here from this element of service? Because this is the other thing. We often think of service as the opposite of power. No, when I am standing in my power, I am at my peak levels of service because I am letting this force come through me that gives me life, that is fueled by love, that is a come along with me. It becomes shared, but we're too scared to stand in that power. And that day when I put that post out, I realized that my duty was to go, no, I need to be able to stand in this and to understand that response isn't really my business. And it's a responsibility and an invitation to understanding more. Because the reason why it affected me so deeply is because at that moment, I wasn't fully there. At that moment, I was still in my humility wound and I was confusing humility with being accepted, maybe, but it wasn't true. Like, I thought it was true. I thought I was doing a good job. But it's really interesting how, 12 months on, 18 months on, when I put out similar offers, actually for more money, the reception of that is very different. People don't even really bat an eye. And what is that? Like, what's the difference? It's because no longer are they questioning my power from what I'm holding. Yes, there will still be a questioning from their woundings, but it's different. The resonance is different because I can stand in this and go, you know what? I know that my duty is to stand in this strength. My duty is to understand, where is this coming from ego? Where is this coming from fear? Where is this coming from this false sense of self? And where is this coming from truth? And if I can differentiate the difference between that and keep on moving into, I'm putting out this offer, or I'm sharing this post, or I'm writing this Substack, or I'm recording this podcast episode from truth, not because it's what I think people want from me, not because I think this will manipulate somebody into thinking my way, but from, this is the message that is so true for me right now. And I want to share it and I want to hear your responses. You feel that on the other end of the post or in your headphones. And that's the quality of power. It's not ego. Ego is this false sense. It's more fragile. It's more easy to be pulled down. That's how, one of the ways you know the difference. Leadership is not follow me, do things my way. Which actually, when I put that post out, that was something that I was working on. One of the things, maybe I'll do another episode on this, that I was holding was, what if I lead them wrong? And there's a whole backstory to that. But that's not leadership. Leadership is, how do I lead myself in my congruence? How do I take my teachings and live by them rather than just speak them? How do I bring this back into my inner inquiry? How do I keep on revisiting? Is it coming from truth, or is it coming from a program or an overlay on my ego? This is how we begin to know the difference between power and force. And these are the questions that I ask myself. And even before I go on this stage and before I stand up as a finalist for this really prestigious award, which feels good. It feels good to be validated, but it's, where am I confusing that? Am I confusing this validation with recognition? So they're different things. One is like, I need you to do this, and now I'm going to do everything in my power in order to get it. The other is, I'm going to be standing in my truth. And if you recognize me, then great. We've got a beautiful thing going on. And even as I've been writing the talk, just asking, where am I confusing, shrinking down, softening the message with humility? Where am I confusing service with self-sacrifice? Where am I confusing power with ego? These are the questions that bring you out of your psychology and into your divinity. And the more we can stand in our divinity, the more true power we have coming through us. And the more true power we have coming through us, the more in service we can be. And the more in service we can be from true power, the more the abundance comes in. The more the person that £20,000 offer needed to reach, because it was for someone particular that needed that level of holding, can recognize it. But if I'm not standing in my power and I don't feel strong enough or congruent enough to put that out there, it's never going to reach the person that it's meant to, and I'm never going to stand behind it. We need to keep having conversations like this. Power is not ego. Power is not force. Power is your birthright. And I wonder if part of this life journey that we have, especially if you are in the spiritual space or you are starting to play with your spirituality, is, you know what, this is truly the source of my power. And so by the time you listen to this, I will have done my talk. I don't know how it will be received. It might trigger some buttons, and that's okay. But I do know this. I am here to build my life around these kinds of conversations. So I'll let you know how it goes, and ask yourself those questions. Let me know. See you next time.